Ooh, you didn't tell me you were a brainiac.
Woo! Okay, Scotty looking good. Everybody,
Hell
welcome to Leather Brains. Here with you, episode 234. I am Alan Casanova Castro. I have Scotty Del Rey with me. I had to work through a few technical hiccups, but we're here. Scotty, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Now that I'm not skipping all over the place looking like a doofus, I'm ready to talk football.
Yeah, you do that. You skip all over the neighborhood anyways, but you're here. Before we went live the first time, I still want to talk about this.
Okay.
So we're wearing hoodies. I'm wearing a hoodie, but I have a t-shirt under mine. Scotty informs me he does not wear anything under his hoodie. He's just naked. And I don't know why. To me, that seems weird. Not nothing under there.
You're not the only one. I didn't know it was weird at all. I've done this my whole life. To be fair, I'm very particular about my hoodies, which is weird because most clothes, I'm like, I buy them at Walmart. I don't care. I'm not a fashion guy. I don't give a shit. But when it comes to hoodies, I like nice hoodies. And maybe it's because I just wear them without a shirt on underneath. So all my hoodies are pretty, good fabric. It's high quality. This is legit NFL gear. I paid a ridiculous amount of money for it. And I never wear clothes underneath. I was telling you the story about how my wife and I were getting on a plane and TSA made me strip basically naked in front of everyone because apparently you're not allowed to wear a hoodie through TSA, and I wasn't wearing anything underneath. And then that's when I learned it was weird because, my wife and the TSA guy and everybody in line's like, what the fuck? You're not wearing a shirt on underneath your hood? Like, I didn't know.
So
I didn't know that was a thing.
Did you walk through with no shirt?
Yeah.
You went through TSA just shirtless.
Well, so they give you an option. And I assume this is a more prevalent option for women who have issues in TSA. But they said, we can either take you to the back room,
nice,
or you can take your shirt off. And I said, well, I don't know what goes on in the back room, but I don't really want to find out. So I just took my shirt off. I got nothing to hide.
I would have rolled the dice with the back room just to see. You're like, what are we doing back here?
Yeah. I don't know. I could just imagine me walking in and the guy just slapping on some leather glove or not leather, whatever those plastic, latex gloves.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to fight that battle. So I just stripped down in the airport.
In my mind, the back room, there's like 2 tanks of nitrous, a couple clowns, like just dildos on the wall, just like random things. It's like, oh God, thank God I came back here. I didn't know this was free.
Yeah, maybe I should have gone to the back room.
I don't know why.
I didn't realize it was a fun house.
Funny to me that you went through TSA shirtless. So it was just, were you wearing jeans? Was it just you with no shirt and jeans, or you?
Well, I think sweatpants probably is typically what I wear on a flight because I'm a normal American who just dresses like a fucking slob in airports. Oh. We treat airports like the worst dungeons on planet Earth. We're like, I got to go to an airport. Let me put on the worst clothes I own.
Oh yeah, the airport's an interesting dynamic because you have people like guys there for men or women there for work that are like dressed up because they got to get off and go to a meeting, and then you have people that are going to Vegas, and then you have people that you're going you don't know where, but they're just in sweats. In a hoodie, and you're like, you could go anywhere in the world with that. Like that's such a. But then you get to your hotel and you change. But I'm the same way. I wear sweats. Like I got to be comfortable on the plane.
It's an interesting case study in humanity when you go. It's sort of like a Walmart. I'm plugging Walmart a lot, but you walk into the airport and there's like one guy wearing a Hawaiian shirt and a sun hat, even though he's going to be on a plane for 3 hours, and then there's another chick like sleeping on the floor. Where else do you sleep on the floor in public? And she's sleeping on the floor in like flaming hot Cheetos sweatpants and Pikachu slippers. Like it's crazy.
Maybe for episode 235 we do like a socioeconomic deep dive of being in an airport, of just like the vast amount, because you have people flying the subway of the skies, Frontier, and then you have people like your Delta Uniteds, just flying first class. So you have quite the disparity of people that are there. But that's interesting. I am honestly jealous that I wasn't one of the people that got to witness you go shirtless through TSA. That would have been quite the thing.
It's like 6 a.m. Everybody in line's like, "Wow, didn't realize we were getting a show today."
This guy's ready to party.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right. Well, what an intro we have. We got a great show for you guys today. We're going to be going over some news. Some of it might be a little bit older. We had to take a little hiatus, but we're back with like the news we want to get to. We kind of left some things off last episode, so we want to touch on those. We got a lot to get through. And then on today's episode, we are going to be deep diving the NFC East. We're just going to kind of talk through their Vegas lines, strength of schedule, who's going to win, who do we see having a regression, just kind of the state of the union for the NFC East. So quite an action-packed show. So we're just going to jump right into it. And Scotty, football's back.
I know, dude.
We had football. You and I were golfing together, and I put the game on for just a little bit, just to feel human on my phone, so we could listen to it. But it's back. How did you feel? Did you feel alive when you just heard just football in the background while we were driving around?
Yeah, it's really crazy. I'm like a spoiled child when it comes to football because when there's no football on, I'm just like in a terrible mood for months. Just like, why is there no football on? And then, preseason starts and you're so excited to watch football. And then like 11 minutes pass and you're like, all right, this is ass. Like, when are we going to play real football? And so I'm going through the highs and lows. This game was fun in part because you're just sort of in shock that you're watching real football and you get to see, at least some players that you recognize on the field, and you get to see head coaches and people getting into it. There's some excitement to it, but the most exciting part of this game was Trey Lance. We've been talking up Trey Lance for years. I think it's safe to say Trey Lance is the preseason MVP. He may be,
so far.
When it comes to playing football against people who aren't starters in the NFL, Trey Lance is good, whether it's college, whether it's preseason. He kills it in these situations.
I would say just of football the NFL's played so far, Trey Lance is number one in the MVP race. Like,
MVP.
There's nobody else you can put there right now. We've only had one game, and he crushed it in that one game. So, I mean, de facto MVP leader so far. But he had a great game. I mean, he went 13 for 20, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think at the beginning, he just looked sharp. He looked different. And I know it's tough because it's preseason and he's not going up against a lot of the starters, but these are still, the best of the best vying for an NFL job. And I think, say what you want about Trey Lance, and I know we discussed it a little bit last Thursday, but it was like, you mentioned it, and I think that's what stuck with me is like, I think I'm more quick to write the book on people. Like, I'm ready to be like, yep, this is who they are, and let's just move on. And you made a good point. Like, he just doesn't have a lot of runway. And he didn't have a lot of that coming out of college. He didn't get a lot of that in San Francisco. He's hurt, traded, now he's with the Chargers, and, unless something happens to Herbert, he's still not going to get it. But he looked good. Like, he looked viable. He looked comfortable. And that's something I don't think I've seen out of Trey Lance so far. And so realizing it's just a preseason game, that was probably the thing that stood out to me. I don't know if that was kind of your vibe and read of the situation with Trey.
Yeah, it's one of the recurring things that I bring up a lot when it comes to quarterback play in the NFL, is expectations. When the expectations are really high, it is really, really hard on players. Like, they know, especially coming right out of college, like, yeah, you get some fame, some notoriety in college, but it's nothing compared to what the NFL spotlight is like. So I go back to Bryce Young. You watch him coming out of college, obviously awesome, and then a huge disappointment, has his ups and downs, and now everyone's kind of high on him again. And that's why I'm still a little bit nervous about Bryce Young coming up in the season, because now the expectations are rising back up. And so far what we've seen from him is when the expectations are high, he crumbles a little bit. But, he's a little bit older, a little bit more matured. I think maybe something similar could be said about Trey Lance. The truth is that we just haven't seen him play enough to know. He's just largely a question mark still.
Yeah.
And, being dethroned by Brock Purdy, seeing now what Brock Purdy is capable of, it's like, okay, you can't really blame him for that. Brock Purdy seems sort of like an anomaly in the NFL where he's just actually pretty good. And so you can't, it's not like Mr. Irrelevant came in and took your job because you suck. It's like, oh, Mr. Irrelevant's actually pretty good. So, Trey Lance, the book still hasn't really been written on him. Hopefully he gets some more time in the preseason to get some reps and still looks good. And then at the very least becomes a viable trade candidate, something that a player that teams around the league, when they're in a tough quarterback situation, might say, hey, this might be a good move. The Dolphins, I think, are a great example of that, where you have a quarterback who's like, I don't really know what's going on with this guy. We signed him to a long deal. He may or may not be able to play. But getting someone like Trey Lance in on the cheap, who you feel like can actually play and maybe grow into something greater than that deal, he has the chance to write his own history now.
Yeah, that's a great mystery, is now who's going to take the chance on him. Because his future, if he wants to build on that, it can't be with the Chargers. But who knows? I mean, there's a lot of great quarterback. I would say great, but I would say there's a lot of like good quarterbacks that were career backups, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, you look at most notably like what the hell's his name? He went to Missouri. He was a backup. Chase Daniels. You think of him, like he came in like he can sling it, he can play. And I think for Trey, I think it's just setting that expectation for himself. Like, what do I want to get? Like, do I think I can contribute, and where can I contribute, and putting yourself in a position. He also might just learn a lot, like being in an organization that, the 49ers were in a win now mentality. So they had to strike with what they had. They had to ride the hot hand based on the contracts they had. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll follow it. I mean, I think I'm just most excited that we had football on, and I agree.
Yeah.
I think the challenge
I do have.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I do have one more question about this game that popped into my head.
Oh, yeah.
The Lions, it's preseason. We know it's preseason. We just talked for 10 minutes about Trey Lance, even though it's one preseason game. So that's crazy. The Lions looked atrocious, looked terrible.
That's actually,
and I know it's preseason, so you can never obviously judge the team, but there is something to be said about, the narrative is there that there's coaching turnover in this organization. Are they going to be the same Lions team, without the geniuses at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator? And then they come out in their first preseason game and they turn the ball over 6 times, it wasn't just like they got beat by talent. It's like they did everything they could to not be competitive in this first preseason game. Is that any legitimate reason to be scared for this team and worried about, Ben Johnson not being there and Aaron Glenn not being there, how it impacted the organization? Or is that just crazy?
I mean, you have to see the next game. We'll see if there's a trend to this where their backups are undisciplined. And there was some, that was bad on their end. There was a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of things you don't really see from a Dan Campbell team. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't put a lot of stock as far as win losses and how teams, because they're putting a lot of people in positions that they don't normally do. They're seeing how people gel together. They're really, and I don't know how far down, I didn't dive deep into it, but I mean, you're talking 3rd, 4th string guys. Cause typically in the first one, you don't want to beat up your 1s and 2s. And I think Lions are a team even last year that you could see you're going to have to get down to that lower level, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it could be concerning. I think that's gonna come out right away. If their points per game just all of a sudden tanks, that's the first thing they're gonna point to is Ben Johnson. They're gonna be like, welp. But I think for Dan Campbell, being the CEO of a team like he is, that's what you have to do. You have to bring in the next guy to do it because it's gonna happen. You're always gonna have turnover, especially if you're winning. The only other thing I wanted to touch on with this game is we had a new ball spotting technology. I don't know if you saw that, where they actually reviewed where the ball was.
Mm-hmm.
Largely a throwaway in my opinion, because it doesn't actually measure during the play where the ball was. It's just after they spot it, you don't have the chain gang, which I'm like, that's kind of irrelevant because I think the problem is the refs actually putting the ball down where it needs to be, not the chain gang. But I didn't know if you saw that or if you had any.
So, okay, I didn't pay close enough attention apparently. So it had nothing, the refs could still spot it wherever they wanted?
Correct. So all it does now is they'll use cameras to now where the ball is, they can quickly spot. They don't have to bring the chain gang out and they don't stretch the chains out the full 10 yards and then measure it. Literally, it's just almost like the ball's set. Now let's go ahead and look at where the first down marker is and see if they crossed it or not. So some of those inches in short, how close are they? All of that stuff is going to come down to video review, but I don't think that was necessarily the problem. I think you kind of knew when you were short. I don't know how much time that ultimately saved you, but one thing I know a lot of fans were pointing to, a lot of this was implemented because Josh Allen was famously called short in the AFC title game and people thought he had crossed. This doesn't solve for that because the refs still have to go out there and spot the ball. Then they can measure it, but it's still heavily reliant on wherever the refs ultimately set the ball down on the ground.
Yeah, that's crazy. So were there any situations in this preseason game where it was close enough that the ref spotted it, and then rather than measuring, they deferred to the technology?
The first time they did it, they just kind of did it, and he was clearly a first down. He was well over the line. You didn't even need it, but they just wanted to show off that the technology was there. So I'm like, okay.
I do wonder maybe if you have that Josh Allen situation, if they can then utilize the technology to make a more definitive call. Maybe.
But they still spotted it where they spotted it. So if we go back to the AFC title game, if the refs spot him short, that's it. That technology doesn't move the ball closer, because if the refs short it there, they're just going to look at the technology and be like, yep, that's short. And then they move on. I failed to see.
There's no way.
Where there's
got to be more to that story.
No,
there's no way they made a huge hubbub about this and then aren't going to use it. Maybe they're obviously it's still in testing phases, so maybe they plan on using it better in the regular season.
Yeah, I think the variable is that the chain gang can slide back and forward, and when they run out, where on the yard line was he versus wasn't he? So I think there's inches there where maybe that's closer, that maybe they'll eventually be giving the first down to teams that maybe previously they didn't. But I think by and large, like that's not where the issue is. The issue is the variability in where the side judge sees the ball stop and then run in and mark it. That's the issue because they can misread something, knee down, not knee down. Did he stretch? Did he not stretch? I always think that's fascinating because around the goal line, everybody will be like, oh, the ball stretched over and touched the goal line. That's it. But the rest of the field, they don't pay attention to that because people stretch the ball out all over the place. Like, okay, did he technically get to that point then? I don't know. And so they still haven't solved for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's
wild.
Crazy.
We'll
but honestly, like, yeah, it's true that maybe just that, thousands of high definition cameras around are better because, in my mind, it was the camera would read how far the ball was, but, that doesn't solve for his knee is down or his elbow touched or whatever, like when that happened. So,
yeah,
that technology, even in theory, doesn't really solve that problem. You still have to use the other cameras around to actually see when he's down.
Yeah. I don't think they can't solve this. But anyways, so we'll follow that. But that's where that piece of quote unquote technology stands at the moment. To something we're not going to see, and the Bills didn't see this weekend, was James Cook. So James Cook is sitting out his second practice in a row due to the contract dispute. He's still holding out. He wants to get paid, which you never know your shelf life in the NFL. But he is holding out, and he was asked by reporters why he wasn't participating. So he was there. He just wasn't participating in the drills. He's just hanging out on the side. And he responded, quote unquote, business. He responded multiple times saying business. Being the GM came out and said that this is the first time he's ever had to deal with this from a contract situation where it's this back and forth. And if I remember correctly, James Cook's agent is actually the same one that was the Bengals rookies agent where he was holding out too due to contract language. So they have the same agent. So I don't know if this is a tactic that he's
a shark, dude.
He's trying something new. And unfortunately these two clients are the him trying something new out. But yeah, James Cook sitting out is going to continue to be an issue. I think in my opinion, I see it as it's just it's a rep and gel thing. Like you got to gel with this team and like where his head's at. But I don't know what you're taking, like how impactful this could be to the Bills offense moving forward this season.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to put money on it, I would say it's going to be a non-factor. They're going to figure something out. I think the fact that he's doing a sit-in as opposed to sitting out is pretty indicative that he's not trying to ruffle too many feathers. He wants to get paid some extra money, but I said this last week, I'll say it again. He recognizes, okay, he's on a team with Josh Allen, MVP. This is a team with actual Super Bowl aspirations. This is a team that should win their division. He wants to be a part of that, and he is willing to maybe not make top dollar at his position, knowing that he has the opportunity to do something legendary in the NFL. So I really think that, maybe he gets a few extra dollars out of this, but at the end of the day, I think he's gonna be ready to play come week 1.
Yeah, I think he could be. Let me ask you a question. Last season for the Bills, James Cook, if he's not on that team and he's not doing that, do you think they even go as far as they did?
I think James Cook played a really big role. And part of it was just, this team recognizing that the running back room has to play a role. Ray Davis also ended up kind of having a pretty big impact, even though he was kind of a no-name going into the season. He ended up playing pretty well too. So, I'm not saying that James Cook is irreplaceable, but certainly he has an argument that, hey, you guys probably wouldn't have done what you did without me. We relied heavily on our offensive line and on the running game to make the run that we made. But again, at the end of the day, nobody in that locker room is confused about who the star is on the team. And so it's just going to be at some point, they're all going to say, all right, this was good. I made a little bit of extra money. The GM's going to fold just a little bit, and then they're going to come to an agreement. And I think they'll be ready to go week 1.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you look at the teams in the AFC as well, it's interesting of the offenses that are still kind of in flux. The Chiefs still figuring things out. They're getting their wide receiver room together. The Bills figuring things out. They're trying to bring wide receivers up to the levels they needed in their running back room. But I think if you look at like performance, if getting paid on what you did, I think James Cook, deserves it. But if you go forward thinking, you're like, maybe I don't want to invest in that. And I think that's the shitty part about all this is you're generally kind of paid half on what you did and half of what you're going to provide in the future. And I think what providing in the future, I think the Bills are not sold on. I think they really want Josh Allen to get back to his throwing ways. But in my opinion, I think they perform better when Josh Allen's a bulldozer when he needs it. And, they're just pounding away at people, and I think that's kind of where they are. Somebody that's not quite sold on his offense either is Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, head coach of the Bears, he keeps taking a shit on his own offense, so to speak. He was really critical of his offense performance during the preseason and calling it sloppy.
Ooh.
He was not satisfied. Scotty, I'm going to ask you a question here. Do you think it's sloppy because he has a bar that they have not reached, or are they actually sloppy in the eyes of people watching the game? What do you think is more at play here?
Probably both. Caleb Williams, I think it's safe to say that this is like his first opportunity at real coaching in the NFL. So I'm sure that there are all sorts of problems, with just operationally how everyone that was on that team was doing. And then, of course, you have all the new faces there. And then Ben Johnson just came from this was one of my biggest, not criticisms, but just like I was a little bit more reserved about my expectations for Ben Johnson moving over to the Bears, because it's sort of like Sam Darnold with the Vikings. Like, you can say, wow, Sam Darnold actually is really good. Or you could say the situation was fucking perfect. The situation was absolutely perfect for Ben Johnson in Detroit, where he had not only, a coaching staff that supported him, an opportunity to do all these creative plays, but he had one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, one of the deepest rosters on the NFL, some of the best stars in the NFL on that offense. So you can do a lot with that. And I imagine there might be just a little bit of reality check when you step into, maybe a slightly lower caliber team. So I think it's probably a little bit of both. It's the preseason. They haven't even played their first preseason game yet. They're going to be sloppy. That's going to happen. But also his expectations have to be through the roof based on what he's experienced over the last couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The bigger question to me is, we often talk about coach speak in the offseason, and you have coaches come out, famously, maybe not famously in NFL circles. The offensive coordinator for the Giants was asked by a reporter, hey, do you think this team can compete for a Super Bowl this year? And he literally just laughed. And it's like, it's funny to some regard, but also it's refreshing to have a coach who's like, yeah, we know we're not there yet. We have a lot of work to do. Yeah. We got a lot of changes we have to make, and we got to get better over time. So it's refreshing in some ways to hear Ben Johnson not just say, yeah, this team is elite, like we're going to kill it. He basically comes out and says, hey, it's not up to our standards yet. We have a lot of work to do. We got to figure this out, and it might take some time, but we're going to get there eventually. And I do appreciate that honesty coming out of that coach's room.
Yeah, I like it too. There's one thing with head coaches is they're control freaks, and not too often do they not say something where they've like heavily vetted it in their own minds or put it out in the media to try to motivate their team. And I think for a young team like this, or a team that's learning how to win, because I think right now he has the benefit of the doubt because he was somewhere where it was working. And so it's kind of, you better listen up because I know how to do this. And I think there's one thing he doesn't want to lose either is credibility as an offensive play caller or what he can deliver, right? Like that's his whole thing. And so I think I agree with you. I think it's really good, but I also think it's kind of like a cat and mouse game mentally with his team, because you'll hear both sides. You'll hear we were sloppy, you'll be like, this might be one of the best teams I've seen, just trying to boost them up and give them confidence. And so I know we as a podcast and as a listener group that follows the podcast are very much, in on the Bears, save for some Packers fans that we have out there. But I think the Bears, they have all the tools to do it. We joke that they've won the offseason a lot. And so it'll be nice to see some accountability, because I think that's the one thing that the Bears have not had is accountability from the coaches to the players. It's just been, we put all these players here and things aren't working, and then just things continue to not work. So I think it'll be refreshing if Ben Johnson can actually set some precedent and like hold people accountable. Our favorite, or one of our other favorite coaches right now, might be having to hold himself to something accountable. And Arthur Smith was in the news again, and he said he admits that he's having to adapt given the major changes on the Steelers' offense, which I don't know if you could read the tea leaves or read between the lines on what those changes might be to the Steelers' offense recently. But Scotty, I want you to read this quote here, because I think this is better in your voice, and then I want you to react to it. And we're going to play a game is read a quote from an NFL coach and tell me what he's actually saying. So I want you to decipher this. I want you to read it, and then I want you to decipher, like, what do you think he's actually saying? So I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, but first things first, this quote I think needs to go on a scale. The scale is 1 totally fine statement, no problems, to 10 being like stolen valor. Like you're just trying to take credit for the work of our brave men and women in uniform overseas. Because he was asked about having to adapt, and he said, quote, "I give my old man a lot of credit, being an ex-Marine and adapting to situational awareness and always evolving." And it's like, okay, so what does that exactly mean? I think the question in all of our minds is, stolen valor aside, is he just talking about Aaron Rodgers? Is he just talking about, you can read into it generously and say, okay, Arthur Smith is obviously kind of a ground and pound type of offensive coordinator. He wants a good run game. And now they have, some star weapons at the receiver position. They have a gunslinger in Aaron Rodgers, or maybe who was a gunslinger. And maybe he's trying to fit the mold of what ideally they want that offense to be versus his instinct, which is like, we need to pound the football and rely on our defense. So that's the generous way to look at it. But the more fun way to look at it is Aaron Rodgers came in here and he started bossing me the fuck around, and I don't know what to do about it. Like, I've had to adapt by crying myself to sleep at night because I don't understand how this guy just came in and took over my job.
It's been so bad. I've had to employ my dad's Marine tactics to just survive in the Steelers locker room. I don't know necessarily what that means or what his dad taught him. I have family in the military, and I can't say my parents were necessarily running me through their, intelligence or like training to like get me prepared. So I don't know how that's necessarily applicable. Like, maybe he is Marine trained. Arthur Smith is. I don't know. I doubt it. But Matt, do you think is this a crack in the foundation already? Is he already admitting that things aren't going well and he's having to deploy some U.S. Marine tactics to just stay in it? Like, what? I guess to me, that's how I read it. I don't know how you read it. It seems like a crack.
I'm more concerned about the fact that Arthur Smith is a grown-ass man, and when asked about the trouble he's having, he's like, well, I remember my daddy used to talk to me.
My dad.
I used to think back to all the lessons my dad taught me. It's like, dude, you're an adult. Like, you can't handle this without hearkening back to your life, like your childhood lessons that you learned from your ex-Marine father. I don't know. Also, by the way, there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. I'm pretty sure Marines yell at people for that. And his dad's a Marine, and he says ex-Marine. I'm pretty sure you get bitch slapped for saying
that's true.
Like
unless
that.
He was dishonorably discharged, which I highly doubt he was. I don't think they throw around the X. I think it's Semper Fi. That's it.
He was an ex-Marine because he ran away.
Yeah, because he deserted his squadron or whatever. I don't know how they say that. I think this is hilarious. We need to keep tabs on this because I wonder what other military training he's going to employ to help control this Steelers offense. But maybe that's maybe that's it. Maybe it's like coaching Aaron Rodgers. You literally have to go through Navy SEAL training and get waterboarded just to handle coaching him. And maybe that's what we're running into. And Arthur Smith. I think this next headline and story is maybe what Arthur Smith will probably need. But I don't know if you saw this. I do know you saw this, so I'm lying to you. I'm just saying this as a good filler to transition. Christian Wilkins, Raiders defensive tackle, was released about a week ago, and what the Raiders organization said was in the best interest of the team. That was kind of the headline that came out initially. And then after some time ticked on, that's not something you necessarily hear in the NFL too often of this is probably best for all of us if you don't work here anymore. Generally, it's you hurt or you got arrested. It's not generally it's not you or it is you. It's just not working out. So the rumor mill was all a swirl. If you're on X or Twitter or Reddit, it was a swirl. What actually happened with Christian Wilkins? The rumor mill was saying that Christian was released because he kissed a teammate in a meeting room. The player rumored to be on the receiving end of this smooch was defensive tackle Adam Butler, who's been in the NFL for about 7 years, hopped around from a few teams. So the Raiders released Christian Wilkins in the best interest of the team because he kissed another player. Do we think this was the first time he kissed a player?
You think it's a 3-strike policy?
Yeah, Christian, we're going to need you to stop kissing our players on the mouth. Because I can't think it was a forehead kiss. Because if you went in with a solid forehead kiss, I don't think anybody's batting an eye at that. So this must have been an on the lips, aggressive sexual thing, right?
Maybe it's they're all used to kissing each other on the lips, like that's not a problem. But the second you try and sneak your tongue in there, then that crosses a line. So they're like, listen, we got to nip this in the bud immediately.
Yeah.
We can't have our players tonguing each other in the locker
Yeah.
room. I just looked up a picture of Adam Butler. He's a good looking guy. He's number 69, which is cool. So
Maybe he's confused.
Yeah, I don't know. But
where was he kissing? I guess maybe I don't know. There's a lot of questions now.
Yeah, this is a crazy story, and I keep hearing rumors about it. I don't really know what's true. Obviously, nobody knows what's true. It's just funny to joke about. So this is all alleged. But I heard rumors that he was joking around and like sticking his finger in people's butts, like dudes do stupid gay shit like that all the time. So like maybe it was just joking around, took a little too far. Got sent to HR. Who hasn't been sent to HR for sticking a finger in someone's butt? That happens to the best of us.
I have not.
Oh, all right. Well, in any case, the real story here is how terrible this fucking Raiders defense is about to be. Because we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I think that Wilkins might have been the second best player on this defense next to Max Crosby.
Yeah,
and he was dealing with some injuries.
He
was dealing with some injuries and all that stuff. But when healthy, like he was a force to be reckoned with. And I think the Raiders also had a couple other, I think they had one season-ending injury with a cornerback that they had. Like, I don't know, man. I still stand by that this Raiders defense, like everyone's talking about Geno Smith and Pete Carroll and like, we might see it look a little better. I think this Raiders defense might be the worst defense in the NFL this season.
I think they could be. And the problem is also who they have to play 6 times now. You're going to have the Chargers. You're going to have the Broncos offense with Bo Nix, one more year in his belt. You're going to have a healthier Chiefs team. So that's already 6 games right off the rip where you're having to play some of the most elite offenses, I think, in the AFC, or like put together offenses in the AFC at least. And that's going to be tough to do for a reeling team. I think they're going to struggle mightily. And I know everybody's going to point to the offense. They're going to have to lean on that offense. Like Genty, Geno, they're literally going to have to put together just long drives and keep that defense off the field. Like that's got to be the best strategy the Raiders can employ this season, is their defense doesn't actually see the field very often. Like the less they're out there, the better it probably is overall. I just don't know mentally how your locker room can regroup after being kissed, like where do you go mentally from there?
Yeah. On one hand, you're like, man, I can't believe that dude kissed me. And then on the other hand, you're like, why did he choose you to kiss? Why didn't he want to kiss me? Like, what's wrong with me?
Love Island Raiders. Like, why did Wilkins single you out for being kissed? Like, what was it about me that he didn't want to kiss me? So, like, honestly, like a mental game that's being played right now is like, if I'm on that staff there, like, you almost have to convince all of the rest of the players that they're kissable. I think that's the only way forward. Is like, like he probably would have made out with you if he could have, but we released him. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Pete Carroll's got to go up there and be like, listen, everybody is pretty good in here. So you guys would have had your shot if we wouldn't have stepped in. So nothing to feel bad about.
Oh, man. What a swept under the rug thing, though, because it's already kind of like dying off. Like nobody's talking about it. But like, what about Adam Butler? Like if he really did get kissed, like he couldn't defend himself from being kissed. Like what happened? That's what I also want to know.
Just let it happen to you.
You
might want to release him too. You just let a dude kiss you.
True.
You didn't want it.
True. We're
How
trying
do
to
you let that happen.
You can't even defend your own mouth. How are you supposed to help our defense?
You're supposed to defend the end zone. You can't defend your own mouth.
You can't even defend yourself. We need to.
You can't let a man sneak up on you like that.
Maybe Adam's the next one to get cut because just for his inability to protect his own mouth at that point. Well, a player that could probably use a kiss right now is Micah Parsons. He might, probably not from Christian Wilkins, but he needs a hug. I think the Cowboys do as well. I don't know if this is shocking to you, but it might be shocking to others that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys suck at paying the right players. Mm-hmm. And they also kind of suck at negotiating contracts. Famously, we've talked, they wait too damn long. And this is another case. They waited too damn long to pay Micah Parsons. And now there's news coming out that Jera was trying to negotiate directly with Micah without his agent, just trying to like get him to grease the wheels and agree to things without his agent there. And, Jerry's coming out and bashing Micah and some other players on the Cowboys team, just, we'll pay who we want to pay and yada, yada, yada. Basically, in summation saying, I don't think these guys are worth it. Like, we'll pay them what we want to pay them. And I don't know about you, but I think Micah's one of the top 5 defensive players in the NFL right now. Super talented, super gifted. And now Micah's requested a trade. Now he doesn't even want to be there anymore. he did an interview with reporters where he was also very like, about the Cowboys, just saying like he basically doesn't want to fight for people that doesn't want to, that don't want to fight for him. And it's just Jerry Jones has single-handedly ruined this relationship. So I guess, is Micah Parsons even on the Cowboys, end of the season, next season? Like what happens here? Because I just don't know how this moves forward now.
Yeah. And it's interesting because these sorts of disputes happen all the time. It's not normally with star players, but they do happen all the time in the NFL. And the big difference between the Cowboys and even James Cook, for example, is the Cowboys still don't really know if they're competitive because we've seen them dominate in the regular season and just fizzle out in the playoffs. And then we saw them last season just completely collapse and look terrible. So I think a lot of the players on this team are like, are we for real or are we not for real? I don't really know what to expect. And so if you're in Micah Parsons' situation, you're like, listen, I don't even know what the near future is going to look like for this team. Like, I don't know if we're going to win 6 games this season or if we're going to be a playoff team. So you better pay me or I don't really have any reason to stick around here. And there's another side to this, which is, and Jerry Jones actually kind of alluded to this himself, which is requesting a trade is a negotiating tactic.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean that, he's so fed up with it that he wants to be anywhere else. It could just be, listen, I've tried everything else I could to get this contract. So if you don't pay me, I want to leave. And that is a negotiating tactic. So I still think the most likely outcome here, and I think Vegas reflects this, you put some Vegas odds in here, is that they figure it out and they pay him. I think that's probably the most likely outcome. But every day that passes, it gets less and less and less likely because Micah Parsons, he's only 26. He's got some career left in him, but he'd love to compete for a Super Bowl. And if this team isn't going to, incentivize him to stick around, he might start looking at other places.
Yeah, if the Cowboys let him walk or trade him or do whatever, it's insane. Also, I just don't know financially or like equity wise what NFL team could actually pony up the dough to get Micah right now.
Well, he still has a franchise tag option. Yeah. They could still tag him and then trade him. And in which
I think
case,
they want to
they
avoid
could tag
that
him
now.
Or keep him or yeah.
I think they want to avoid that now. Now I think you just got to figure out a way to get this done and get it over the line and get him paid and keep him happy and just say, sorry, business is business. But very rarely do you see this much out in the open. And this is probably just a Cowboys factor because the Cowboys are thrown in our face every 2 seconds, wherever you look. But very rarely do you know this much about the situation rather than contract negotiation. You don't, Ian Rappaport will just get on and be like, yeah, contract negotiations they're breaking down and he's going to request a trade. And I think we've heard that a lot. I think this one just feels different just because of how much we know and how much of an asshole Jerry Jones is. Like, I think if it wasn't Jerry Jones, I'd be like, yeah, they'll probably figure out how to get it done. But I wouldn't be so shocked if Jerry Jones is just like this uptight, stubborn son of a bitch that's just not going to trade him. Or maybe he will trade him. I don't even know. Like, this is, I think, if you kind of get the pulse of X of Cowboys fans, I think they're generally just kind of over Jerry Jones. I think everybody's over him now. And I'll be interested to see how this plays out. But I think if he gets rid of Micah, I think you're going to hear some very loud grumblings from the fan base to get Jerry out of there, forcing him to sell the team. I think that's where that would trend.
100%. And it's really unfortunate for Jerry Jones because as fun as it is to make fun of the guy because he's a pretty easy target. He did a lot for the NFL. He's done a lot for football. He's done a lot for that Cowboys team. But just in recent years, it just seems like he's old enough that he just doesn't really give a shit anymore. And you can tell just by the way he talks to the media. And it's very funny for the rest of us. But if you're a Cowboys fan, you just got to be like, just shut the fuck up and do what you got to do. Like, please, I just want to watch football
I know.
for once.
I think Jerry's at this point in his life, and he's old. How old is Jerry Jones right now?
I would guess 80. Is he over or under Joe Biden? What do you think?
Let's play this game. Let's play this game. How old do you think he is?
I'm going to say 83.
Very close. He's 82. He turns 83 in October, so he's a couple months away from being 83. So you were right on.
Birthday?
You got the pulse of Jerry. October 13th.
Oh, he's only 12 days older than me, plus,
a lot of years.
60 years.
It's weird seeing an age where you see October 13th, 1942. I feel like I'm watching a World War II documentary, not looking at an NFL owner's age. I feel like I'm about to look at D-Day, not his age. But anyways,
when he was born, Normandy wasn't even known yet.
Yeah, it was just
Nobody even
it
knew
was
what
still
Normandy
a fun
was.
beach. It was a beach where people would frolic and swim on the daily.
Yeah.
Now it's war torn. So Jerry Jones. He's 82. I think the thing I would love to know, and if we could get into his brain, which I don't want to be in, does he want to be right more than he wants to win? And those are two different things. Because to me, it seems like whenever he's in front of a microphone or he's talking to people, he wants to be right. Like he doesn't care if they win or not. Like, okay, just admit you're wrong and pay your best player and let's move on. Versus like, does he want to win this battle of being right now and not pay his best player and get him out of there? So at least he can say, see, I was right. Told you want to be here. Hey, we don't want people who want to be Cowboys. However he gets into his little draw. Like, I think this is the dumbest thing ever. If you look at the antithesis, if you go to the second team on this list, and there's Vegas odds already. There's Vegas odds for everything. I don't know if you follow any of the WNBA news. Have you seen any of that? So in WNBA right now, they have a problem with fans. There's been 2 games where they've thrown a dildo onto the court while they're playing, and it's like a bright green dildo. So there's Vegas odds right now on like what color is the next dildo that will be thrown onto the WNBA court.
Oh my God.
It's hilarious. You'll have to look that up. It's amazing. But
they really should lean into that because you imagine I can't really imagine sitting down and watching a WNBA game. Like I'm not a huge basketball fan anyway, so let alone WNBA. But if I can bet on the dildo, that might get me locked in.
It's actually really hilarious. And one of the players for the Indiana Fever, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she put out a tweet, was like, stop throwing the dildos, you're going to get one of us hurt. And somebody responded on Twitter and was like, well, stop playing basketball on the dildo range. So I think I was dying. It's one of the funniest things ever. But anyways, and under the umbrella of you can bet on anything, you can actually bet on the next color dildo that will be thrown onto the court of the WNBA game. So, which led to other posts that were basically like, drop $5,000 on a blue dildo and then sneak it into a game and throw it and then cash in your bet.
Why not?
Like, cash in your bet. So anyways, there are odds for everything. So of course there are odds for where Micah's going to end up. And obviously the overwhelming favorite is he's just going to re-sign with the Cowboys at -300. But the next team on the list, which is hilarious, is the Eagles. And some of that's trolling, but some of that's also how that team is ran. And, we give flowers all the time to Howie. And that's how you run a team. Like you get the best players in there, you pay them and you move on. Like it doesn't have to be this long drawn out thing where you're trying to save a buck here or there. Like just pay them. Like if you're trying to win, just pay them. And I think Cowboys have to be in a win now mentality. And I just don't get the sense that their team is in that mode. I think Jerry's still trying to clone Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith rather than like figuring out who's there and how he can win now. And that's just kind of where we're at.
Do you think Howie is he's like a fucking Sith Lord sitting in his office, like with his hood up, and he's just rubbing his hands together? Anytime he sees someone in the media, he's not happy.
Would there be a bigger FU to the NFC East than the Eagles getting Saquon Barkley and Micah Parsons onto their team in like a span of a few years? Like that would be just the most giant middle finger to that. Like it's just insane. I mean, again, we talk about it all the time. The Eagles are just one of the best run organizations in football right now. And you can see the antithesis literally in the division of how not to run a team. Like there's literally textbooks in one division of how to run and how not to run NFL teams.
It's really unfortunate. I'm making an assumption here, but I think it's a safe assumption. Jerry Jones can't call his dad like Arthur Smith and ask for his advice because that's what he really needs right now. He needs his, World War I veteran.
I was going to say,
father.
what war advice would his dad get? Like the Civil War? Like,
yeah,
when we were loading our muskets one shot at a time, that really taught you how to stand strong in your values.
Yeah. I don't understand how all these people fight wars now without standing in a straight line. Like
we used to be arm in arm with each other, fighting for the South.
I remember watching my drummer go down next to me. It's crazy.
The funny thing is, Jerry's family they fought for the South, so that would not also land well in the locker room because they'd be like, "Which side did your dad fight for, Jerry?"
Yeah, he's been working hard not to bring this up.
Whoopsie doodle. I'm not talking about that one. Well, we talk about great, run organizations and poorly run organizations. Somebody that's really needing to run right now is the Bucs rookie Desmond Watson. Very famously, one of the heaviest players ever in the NFL right now. He's weighing in right now at 450 pounds. So 450-pound rookie Desmond Watson is still not allowed to practice with the team until he is in better shape. Think about that. There is a player signed on an NFL roster right now that's literally not allowed to practice with the team until he is in better shape. So there are videos out there of him actually trying to jog. You should look these up because he's not really jogging at all. He's literally like kind of walking quickly, almost like the pace you'd walk to like if you left something in the microwave and you need to get it out. You know what I mean? It's like there's urgency, but it's not anything crazy. And I think it's insane that we're in today's day and age, and he's like 450 pounds is huge. Like I think that's hard to fathom. I put something in here for comparison. Vince Wilfork. I don't know if you remember Vince Wilfork from the Patriots. He was huge. He was 325 pounds. So this guy still has 125 pounds on him. And it's just a freaking. So I guess I wanted to take some time here because I don't know. Could we give him any weight loss tips? Is there anything more or less he could be doing? I think we should be supporting him. I don't want to fat shame anybody, but sometimes it works. Sometimes we can fat shame people. If you follow the NBA, like Luka Doncic has been fat shamed into getting back in shape and it's working. Like so I think there's a healthy amount of fat shaming we can do. And I think we should try to do that. So like what weight loss tips could we be giving Desmond right now that to aid in his ability to actually practice?
Well, I'm pretty sure, I don't have Facebook anymore, but I'm pretty sure if you get onto Facebook, you can find a lot of groups of like middle-aged white women that do like power walking through the park. If you can't run, maybe like power walking, you got a couple like 2.5 pound weights in each hand and you're just kind of strolling at a slightly above leisurely pace. You do that long enough, you're going to lose some weight.
Yeah.
That's probably good. I was actually surprised because when you brought up 450 pounds seems pretty big, I wanted to compare it to a smart car. See, kind of what, and he's only like a fourth the weight of a smart car.
Yeah.
So, really, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Yeah, it's not that bad at all. I was going to say getting into a pool, like something to do some like swimming. I don't know if his body, if he can actually handle that. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what you do.
Or if the pool could handle it.
Yeah,
no fat shaming, but
true. No,
you got to find an industrial.
Yeah, he
maybe like a water tank for a small town.
Yeah,
like a water tower.
My other suggestion was like a sauna. Like, just almost turn yourself into beef jerky. I don't know if you can dehydrate yourself enough. Like, I don't know how you get to that point. Godspeed to him. I'm going to keep track of this as we go along to see if he actually gets to practice, but so far not so good. The other side of this is, I admit this, this could happen to any one of us. Any one of us could get to 450 if we truly tried, maybe. What would be your go-to food if you were trying to get to 450? If I was like, Matt, you need to get to 450 as quickly as humanly possible. Like, what would you just be dominating?
This is an easy one. I've actually learned in my own life, because I learned that I have high blood pressure, or high, it's not like I'm not going to die, I don't think, but it's higher for my age group. And that's despite the fact that I'm, not overweight or anything. So it's like the food that you eat has to be the perfect mix of, you can eat a shitload of it to the point where your body is storing all that fat, but it also doesn't kill you from something else that maybe not directly be related to your weight. So my first thought is lasagna, because I can freaking smoke lasagna. Those little Stouffer's lasagna that's meant to feed a family of like 4 people, I'll put that thing down, no problem.
Could you 3 meals a day, that thing?
Well, probably for a certain period of time.
Okay.
But that's the thing, is like, I'm sure there's like 17 billion tons of sodium in one of those. So you might just have a stroke before you gain any weight. And that's my concern. So we might have to get a doctor on to talk about the best tips to gain 400 pounds.
We need the opposite of Ozempic is what we need.
Oh, maybe that's a good point. There's got to be a pharmaceutical.
Should he do Ozempic, or would that take away all of his strength as like an NFL player? Can you kind of do Ozempic?
Like Ozempic, like intermittent Ozempic?
Ozempic light? Like, I don't want him to go all the way down. I don't want him to look like a Hollywood actress, but I'd like him to lose a couple. Like, could you dabble in it?
When people lose a lot of weight and they have all that extra skin, you think he might be able to like do a flying squirrel kind of situation, like off the Grand Canyon? I'm just asking. I'm not fat shaming. I'm just wondering.
His next job is to be one of those shoots on one of those funny cars where they got to slow him down. That's him. He just hangs onto the back. Oh man. That's a great point. I don't know. I really hope he can figure it out, because I know they could use some, more D-line help, but we'll figure that out. Oh, I don't even know how to segue off of that. That's just freaking hilarious. All right, we'll get into let's do some depth chart news, and then we'll get into the NFC East. Couple as we near closer to preseason week 1 officially, now that the Hall of Fame game is behind us, teams are releasing some depth charts, just kind of showing where players fall, which is actually kind of like the first look, besides just watching random films that people post on Twitter. And so first depth chart we're gonna quickly discuss is the Colts unofficial depth chart. We say unofficial because it was leaked when I entered this in, but it has Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson listed as an or, which means if you follow depth chart, it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, which means they don't have a clear number one. So it's either of them. Surprised, not surprised. They don't have one listed. Thoughts on this one?
Well, it's interesting because in the same way that we were like, yeah, I'm not sure the NFL understands the whole purpose of like the first down camera for the ball. Like, why aren't they using it? Like, is obvious the way that they should be using it. I don't think the Colts understand the purpose of a depth chart. They're like, yeah, we'll just put everyone on there and just no specific order. Just like, here's all our players. It's like, good luck.
It's like teasing. It could be this guy or it could be this guy.
Yeah,
tune in. Like teasing their season ticket holders.
Not surprised. Anthony Richardson, of course, is just in the situation where he is totally useless if he can't stay healthy, and so far he just can't stay healthy. And I think maybe they're trying to figure out their plan of, okay, do we let Daniel Jones just take the reins and let Anthony Richardson sort of get his bearings and, I don't know, do whatever he has to do, pray to his gods in order to keep his knees working? Or do we throw Anthony Richardson out there, and if he gets hurt, then he's done, and if he doesn't get hurt, then good for us. And yeah. I think they're still trying to figure out their own game plan in that regard. But neither of them are, nobody's particularly excited about either of these options at this point.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably where they're at right now is like, it's probably best we don't say anything to save ourselves the trouble. They probably know one way or the other. They kind of are leaning one way, but it's like, let's just put or so we don't have to answer the question. Like, yeah, they're both doing great, like even though in the back of their heads, like, that's probably gonna be Daniel Jones. We just don't have to tell everybody that yet. So it's like, yeah. I have bad news to tell. I'm just not telling you yet. That's probably where their Colts are. The Jaguars, on the other hand, probably have some good news. They listed Travis Hunter, Heisman winner, number one draft pick. He was listed as the wide receiver 1 in the backup cornerback or cornerback 2. I think we're officially trending to him being more a wide receiver than cornerback. I know there's a lot of people saying that no, he's probably still the better cornerback prospect, but I mean, this is an official depth chart that lists him as a clear wide receiver 1. Like, are we trending? Are we not? Are you in a wait and see mode? Or are you all in on him as a wide receiver?
I still think what we predicted long ago is the most likely, which is he's going to play wide receiver. That's his primary job. And they're going to have some specialized packages where they throw him in on defense in obvious passing downs when he's not going to have to, fill a hole in the middle of the line of scrimmage. Like, yeah. That's pretty much it. He has potential to be a star wide receiver. And when you have that, like, you're not going to see the Vikings putting Justin Jefferson, on defense ever. Like, they don't even want him to they want to put him in a bubble anytime he's not actively on offense. And so, they're dealing with that too, where Travis Hunter, he wants to play both sides of the ball. But at some point in time, you just got to have the adult conversation. Like, listen, you can make a ridiculous amount of money playing wide receiver. You do not want to increase your chances of injury by 50%. So, like, let's just go ahead and let you focus on what you're best at. Even if it's not what he's best at, what he could be most impactful. Because the best corner in the league can only be so impactful because every offense has multiple targets that they can throw to. So it's just one of those things that it makes the most sense for him to play offense.
Yeah, and I think as a team, you want it on defense. The hard thing is you don't know if your playmakers are actually going to impact the ball. Because largely that's dictated by the offense. You could put Travis Hunter out there for 4 downs and they couldn't throw his way, which is good, if they don't want to throw it him. But that's kind of the risk reward, or maybe they do throw it. You don't know. I think that's one of the things. And I think for the Jaguars as a team that's still trying to, they still have Trevor Lawrence. I think they still want to prove value on a lot of things that they have. I think that makes a lot of sense where they would want to put Travis Hunter on offense and get him the ball. You can literally go hand him the ball and let him go run around. So I think that's probably the best thing right now. But I think you're right. I think we're largely trending in what we predicted, which shout out Leatherbrains for predicting it. Is that exactly what you said? He's going to get the ball on offense, and then on obvious passing down situations on defense, they'll throw him out there and let him go, defend the slot or, get him kind of out wide and, bat those balls away. So we'll keep following that one, but this will be interesting because the first preseason games will tell a lot. Fingers crossed nobody gets hurt. That's always the shitty thing about preseason. You never know who gets hurt. So continued great health for all these players. All right, we're going to march into what we've been doing now for the last few episodes is kind of going over the divisions as we get closer to the start of the NFL season. So this week we're talking about the NFC East. We got a lot of talent in this division. We got a lot of great teams in this division. A lot of teams that are hoping to continue on building what they've already built. So Scotty, we got in this division, if you're living under a rock or you're new to football, I don't know where we're at in the listening audience or who may be tuning in, but NFC East, we have the Eagles, Commanders, Cowboys, and the Giants. So we have the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles here, with the best odds to win the division. Obviously, I think this is everybody's best team in the NFL. So we're going to start right there. We're just going to talk through these teams a little bit, and then we're going to kind of go into some questions and just kind of like rapid fire who we think and is going to win, and just some nuggets here. So we have the Eagles. I like that you included the strength of schedule. I think that's important to note. Scotty included that every one of these teams in the division has the top 10 hardest schedule in the NFL. Their schedules are brutal. As if it wasn't, throwing dirt on somebody already or kicking them while they're down, the Giants actually have the hardest schedule in the NFL. And we kind of went through it before, and we'll touch on that. So that's going to be a theme of these teams, is that they have the hardest schedule. So starting off with the Eagles, I mean, you win, no surprise. You play the division leaders, and you have to go play a harder schedule. And that's where the Eagles start. And I don't know. I think probably the best question to ask here, Scotty, is not what their strengths are, but like, if the Eagles don't repeat winning this division, don't repeat kind of being the 1 seed in the NFC, what's the thing that's going to hold them back this year?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's injury. That's the case with every team, but in particular, when you have a star-studded team, the Detroit Lions gave us all a lesson last season and how to continue to compete even with all of your stars kind of falling off and unfortunately dealing with these injuries. The reality is that most teams are not capable of doing that. So if you have a couple key injuries, and of course we don't want that, we want the best football at all times. But someone like Saquon or someone like Jalen Hurts gets an injury, that's the very obvious reason why they may not repeat, and it's the most likely reason why they won't repeat, because they are one of the top tier teams in the NFL, as they just demonstrated last season. But the biggest question marks with this team are the same that we've been talking about for years now, which is Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. Both of these guys obviously have had success with this Eagles organization, and it's no wonder, because their roster is incredible, maybe the best roster in the NFL. So the question becomes, just a year and a half ago, we saw this team completely and totally collapse, and they didn't have Saquon then, but they had a lot of stars, and they were still a team that everyone expected to be competing for a Super Bowl, and they completely collapsed. And to me, that is an indictment on the coaching. And we always have questions about Nick Sirianni and about kind of what his role is on that team, if they're winning in spite of him or if they're winning because of him, or, how much he's actually providing to, in particular, the offense and how things are running. We've all seen the viral videos of Jalen Hurts having to calm Nick Sirianni down because he's screaming at fans in the stands. And like, he just does some weird things that make you think, I don't know if this guy's all that he's cracked up to be. So that is maybe the second most likely option, is that they suffer some setbacks. They have a total collapse because the leadership just may not be there at the top levels of the organization. But all that is obviously speculation. The most likely outcome is that they dominate this division. They play a very tough schedule, but they play it with a lot of success, and they're competing for another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think you called out some really good things. I think the biggest thing is Saquon. I think if you took away Jalen Hurts' goal line tush pushes, I think Saquon runs away with the MVP. I think, especially as there was a bunch of hemming and hawing, was it Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? I think actually, if you were to ask people, I think Saquon Barkley was the MVP of the NFL last year. And he carried this Eagles team through the regular season. They had some ups and downs through the playoffs. I think he gave him a shot in the arm when the year previous they would have been like, I don't know what to do. And I think it allowed Jalen Hurts to play more confident and more loose, because when you are able to turn around and just hand it off to Saquon, or you can throw it out to the fly, like that takes a lot of pressure off of you as a quarterback. It also takes a lot of pressure off of you as a play caller and as a head coach. Like, it's very obvious who you need to give the ball to. And the Eagles also very famously have one of the best offensive lines in football still. And that's all you need. If you can control the line of scrimmage on offense and you can hand it off to Saquon Barkley, that's going to right so many wrongs or let you figure things out. I will say that Jalen Hurts in 2 Super Bowls has also played out of his mind. And so he shows up when the lights come on. And I think that's the other thing for this team that they can continue to ride, is that he may not put up all the flashy stats or like do what prototypical NFL quarterbacks do, right? Drop back passing. But I mean, he throws the ball really well when he has to. And I think that's the thing that they need to continue to lean on. I do agree with you though. I think my thing that holds the Eagles back this year is if they rest on their laurels. I think they need to continue to innovate, and I think they need to continue to figure out different ways, because now there's a lot of film, on them. And I think that's the hardest part for these coaches, is reinventing themselves and figuring out different ways to beat people, because it's not always going to work the same way. And I wonder if Nick Sirianni's in position to do that. You mentioned him. I don't think he's a great offensive coach. I don't think he's a great defensive coach. I think he's a great locker room coach. And I think that's what this Eagles team really needs a lot of the time, especially when you have all these players. Like, you have the talent to go win. And that's, 90% of the battle, in my opinion, is like, you got to have the players to go play. And so his ability to keep them rowing in the same direction, I think, is going to be the things that leads to the Eagles' success. I would honestly be surprised if they don't win this division. We'll talk about who's going to win in a second, but I think that would be a surprise to me if they don't end up winning this division. Going one team down, we're now talking about the NFC title game that featured the Eagles and the Commanders, and the Commanders have the second best odds to win this division, and still a top 10 hardest schedule, but the easiest schedule out of all of them. And I think a lot of people are expecting a lot out of the Commanders this year. And it may not show up by the way of making it all the way to the NFC title game, because a lot has to go right. And a lot did go right. They took down the Lions in Detroit. They did some things that made it possible for themselves. But looking ahead to the Commanders, they also have contract issues. Terry McLaurin's asking for a trade as well. Is that smoke and mirrors? Are they actually going to trade him? I just saw right before we went live here, there's some discussions between them and Miami about trading Tyreek for Scary Terry, and do they do an old switcheroo? And you got two people that are unhappy, and give them new life. So we'll see what ends up happening with the Commanders. But I think one thing that we can say for certain is that Jaden Daniels is probably the real deal. And I guess the one thing then I would go to is, all right, what are the question marks? And I guess for you, I'll open it up the floor to you with the Commanders. If the Commanders are to repeat, and let's say repeat making to the playoffs, because I think most agree they're probably not going to make it back to the NFC title game. That's really hard to do for them. I think it was kind of lightning in a bottle. But to make it back into the playoffs, what are some things the Commanders are going to have to do well, and some things they need to avoid then to continue the run that they had last year?
Yeah, I mean, for them, it's always interesting when a team exceeds expectations, and now it's like, hey, you're on the stage. Like, people expect this out of you now, and you have to show up and perform. And it goes back to the things I've said about other quarterbacks, but the expectations make a big difference, especially for a guy coming out in a sophomore season. It's going to come down to Jaden Daniels, and that's not a hot take. Everyone's going to agree with that, but we've seen quarterbacks have pretty good or electric rookie seasons, and then you see that sort of sophomore slump, rear its ugly head. And the question is he the type of quarterback that is not going to be fazed by anything like that, or is he the type of quarterback that's the real deal, and he's going to continue to carry this team? I think that the team has a lot of things that are promising about it. I don't know that they're a Super Bowl contender, but they're not out of the conversation if they're playing well, as they demonstrated last year. This is a team that nobody can take lightly. And Jaden Daniels, the one thing that I'll say about him that gives me more faith than a lot of quarterbacks in similar situations is you can just tell he's got a good head on his shoulders. Mm-hmm. He's someone that doesn't let the pressure get to him. When the lights are brightest, he's out there having fun. He's smiling. Right. Like, he knows he plays a game for a living, and he's here to do it at a high level, and he's not going to worry about what people are saying about him. That says a lot about him, and I think gives you a lot of hope for their success. But it's just so difficult to repeat what we saw from last season. The standards are so high that, if they don't meet those standards, they could still have a successful season and still have a lot to look forward to. But I think the question is the right one, which is this a playoff team? And that's where the bar should be. I think that it would not surprise me at all if they make it into the playoffs pretty easily. It also wouldn't surprise me if they're just outside of the playoffs, by the time the season ends. Yeah,
I agree. I think the fighting for a wild card, spot, fighting for one of those last in teams not winning the division, I think that's appropriate for them. Jaden Daniels, he kind of had a slump during his rookie season and kind of fought out of it. There was a few weeks there where he looked a little lost, and then kind of put it all together. And then, they just kind of went on a tear, and he was playing so confident, and I'm excited for them to build around him. And I think the thing is that Commanders kind of fall into that bucket of teams probably not ran that great in the NFL historically. And I think for them this year is like, did they do enough to surround Jaden with enough to move forward? Is that defense still, available to stop when needed? And I think that's honestly, like, a lot of things out of Jaden Daniels' control are going to happen. And this team is aging. They have a lot of aging assets especially on offense, that they need to reinvest in. And then Terry McLaurin asking for a trade, like, is he still there? So I think there's going to be a lot of things that are outside of his control. And I think if as long as he's still showing development and promise, I think it'll be a good signal to bring in free agents as we look forward. But I think for next year, I think he just more of the same. But I agree with you. I think even flirting with the playoffs is going to be good for them because they're now on everybody's radar. They're not going to sneak up on anybody. I think that if you go back to remember last year, the time they snuck up on people was when they were in Cincinnati against Joe Burrow and they had that shootout and he threw a freaking dot to, basically ice the game. And you're like, whoa, okay. I thought this is where the Bengals kind of get back on track, not lose to Jaden Daniels in his coming out party. So he's not going to get the benefit that out there. Now the expectations, you're absolutely right, are can you go do it again? And so I think the aging assets and I think their ability to kind of like repeat success is going to largely dictate how it goes. Like they just need to stay within themselves this season.
And not to mention, I mean, it's a rare way to attain success in the NFL, but it does happen when you have a new coaching staff and a new quarterback and like nobody knows what this offense is going to look like. It's difficult for defensive coordinators to game plan. Now you have a season of film, and that changes everything. And we've seen that time and time again. We have countless examples of guys who are just like, holy shit, this guy can play. And then all of a sudden, the defenses are ready. And you're going to see defenses much better prepared for this Commanders team in 2025, 2026 than we did last year. Yeah,
I agree. It'll be fun to watch them, though. I think now, I think if you're a Commanders fan, if you just boil it all down, it's fun to watch your team again. This has almost reminded me when they had RG3. When he came out and, he was balling for them. It's like, oh, wow, this is like exciting again. So if they can keep him healthy, again, exciting. I don't want to spend too much time on this team because we kind of already did when we were talking about Micah Parsons, but the third best odds to win this division right now sit with the Dallas Cowboys. They do have a really hard schedule, and that we talked about it before we even went live. You kind of generally do have the hardest schedule if you're in the division. You have to play the Super Bowl champion twice. That kind of lends itself to having an overall harder schedule. And also the Commanders, the Commanders being really good. So there's just like teams improving and trending upwards. This Cowboys team, I don't know. It's like if you take away all of the extracurricular stuff, like on paper, they look really good. And they've been that way for some time. Can Dak not implode? I think we know what we're getting out of Dak. I don't think we need any long drawn out conversations of if he's a lead or not. Like I think he's just a good quarterback that has his ups and downs. I don't think he's consistently great. And then it's where does this team go? They signed Pickens, which for a volatile locker room, I don't know if that's the best thing you want to do. It's like lighting a match, like burning, like you open up a gas line and you have like a thing of matches there and you're like, all right, well, this could go off at any moment. What do you see happening? And normally we save this for slaps, but I'm gonna give this to you, Scotty. You get a crystal ball in front of you. I want you to look into the crystal ball. How does this season go for the Cowboys? How do you see this playing out for them going to 2025?
Yeah, this is the toughest one, obviously, predicting what's going to happen with the Cowboys, because this is a team, like you said, on paper and in recent history, has been very, very formidable. Like, they have been a good team, and everyone makes fun of them because of their playoff performances, but ultimately, the playoffs is sort of a singular event, and up until then, you have all of these games that teams don't want to play the Cowboys, and that's been the case for a while. It's also true that this is a team that is like right on the knife's edge of total collapse. And you can tell that from the culture. You can tell that from the interviews. And you could also see it on the field like we saw last season. I mean, a couple things go wrong, and I don't know that they have the structure in place to rally their guys and bounce back. So it almost like it's like their fate this season is going to come down to if they get a couple favorable bounces. Like if games go their way and they get some good calls that keep them in games or allow them to win ones where maybe they shouldn't, then they could definitely go on a tear and go on a run and be a formidable team. But if they don't get those calls and things don't go their way and things start to go bad, I could just see them falling off the face of the earth. My gut reaction is we're going to see the Cowboys bounce back. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be sort of a wild card team. I think we're going to see CeeDee Lamb have a great season. I think with an additional weapon, Dak Prescott's going to look better. I do think they end up bringing Parsons back, and I think this is going to be a good team. But man, if you talk to me in 15 weeks from now, I might just be regretting everything I just said.
Yeah, honestly, like the floor is they implode and trade everybody away. The ceiling is they get into the playoffs. As one and was one of those wild cards. And I think that's such a variance. And for a team that has a lot of veterans and like a lot of high profile talent, that's very odd.
Yeah.
Very odd. And so I would agree with everything you said. I think for me, it also comes down to like they don't get the benefit like the Lions had last year. Like the Lions had injuries, things went south, but they were such a strong mental team that they were able to come back from that. Like, and that's kind of, again, testament to Dan Campbell of like how he coaches. Like, you think you show that through, but like you have Schottenheimer, you have new coaching staff, they're dealing with a lot of shit. Their owner can't get out of his own way. I don't know if this team has the mental fortitude to like weather a storm like that. So just like you said, one thing goes wrong, they'll probably be like, F it, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. And so, the pressure like this could, either break apart a team or galvanize them together, but you kind of stole a little bit of my thunder. I'm almost betting like, because there's so much trending of like how dysfunctional it is, like it's almost like I almost see this team being like, fine, F all these guys, we're doing it for us. Like we're doing this for the locker room. I don't care about the owner. We're going to do it for us. We want to win because of each other. And that's a dangerous thing too for the NFL, because if this team can figure out a way to play for each other and stop playing for themselves, they could do a lot of damage. And, they walk into week 1. I know that's in Philadelphia. They walk in as a touchdown underdog to the Eagles. And that's not a great way to start your season when you're already kind of like having a little bit of anxiety about how the season's going to go as a team. So if they can put it together, I think that opening game is going to tell a lot about where they are and how they want to fight. Because if they just lay down, I could see it getting really messy. All right, last team. This team has like this astronomically large odds, plus 2,500 to win the division, and equipped with the hardest schedule in the NFL. We kind of went through this. We went through this just a little bit, but it was the New York Giants. New York Giants football. They have Russell Wilson. They got Jackson Dart, and they also have just a hell of a schedule. And I'm gonna, because Scotty and I already went through this, so I'm not gonna like belabor this point, but we went through the schedule, and there's literally 2 games I think they'll be favored in. And they could easily be not favored in those 2 games, depending on how the rest of the season goes. And that is October 5th, they go to New Orleans. And then you don't get another game where they could be favored in until the 27th of December when they're at Las Vegas. No offense to Vegas, but like those are the only 2. Other than that, they get the Lions. They obviously get the Commanders. They get the Vikings. They get the Chiefs. They get the Broncos. They get the Bears. They get literally everybody. And if you're a Giants fan, I think, so I'm going to pose a little different question for you, because I think we kind of know how the season's going to go for them. We could just say it's going to be a pile of shit. If you're a Giants fan, what's one thing you're like, okay, I could hang my hat on this season. Largely, I've already made peace with it. We're not going to make the playoffs. We're going to be a dumpster fire. I guess what's a bright spot you could see for the Giants this season that would give them hope going into next season, or what they would consider this season a success?
Ugh. That might be the hardest question you could ask anybody about anything. You ask me a question about quantum physics, and I'm more likely to get it right than this one. Here's the thing. Obviously, the correct answer is Jackson Dart. The correct answer is Jackson Dart gets an opportunity, and he looks competent, and you say, okay, at least we have a quarterback. The problem is this team is in such a terrible spot because there are already questions about Brian Dable. There are already questions about Joe Shane. And we can't expect them to look good. Just given even if they were a relatively competent team, given the competition that they are playing this season, like the likelihood that they not only lose but get blown out several times is just super high. And, I'm of the opinion that everything that's happened in New York is not the fault of Brian Dable. I wouldn't even really say it's the fault of Joe Shane necessarily. It's just everything is just piled on top of these guys. And the most likely outcome is that these guys win like 2 games, and then their coaching staff gets fired and their front office gets fired. And in that case, even if Jackson Dart looks good, guess what? He's got to come back to his sophomore season with a totally new system, totally new coaches. Who knows what that's going to look like? Like, this might be the worst possible situation to be in the NFL. And then on top of that, you have all the recent stuff with Hard Knocks. You have the Saquon Barkley stuff. Like, I don't know what Giants fans did to piss off God, but they must have done something real bad, because this is atrocious.
Yeah, this is a downward spiral where you paid Daniel Jones and didn't pay Saquon Barkley. And we just talked about this with the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, not to continue to talk about them because I know everybody gets sick of the Cowboys, but they did the same thing where they paid Zeke, and then didn't pay Amari Cooper and let Amari Cooper walk when they could have had Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and then kind of redone the running back room with somebody else.
Yeah.
Like there's just decisions and points in time that send you on these downward spirals. And unfortunately for the Giants fan, we all had a front row seat to that decision. And then the Eagles turned around and cashed in on it right away with the Super Bowl. Like, this is just salt in the wound. Like, this is just bad. This is just bad. I mean, to answer my own question, I said ding, ding, ding when you said Jackson Dart. I think that's what it is. I think you need to be able to see something with Jackson Dart that, leads you to believe like this could be the future of our organization. I don't see that happening. I'm not like a huge Jackson Dart fan necessarily. And I say that as like, I think he's going to be able to carry this team for years and years. And you have like a cornerstone of a team. I think he's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see what he can provide this team. And I'm love to be proven wrong because I think the Giants desperately need something to hang on to this season. Cause I think if they have to watch this quarterback room do whatever it's going to do, and it still looks awful and they have no answers and they go into the offseason and be like, do we draft another quarterback? Like, what do we even do? Like, do we go trade for somebody? And so I think it'll be interesting how the Giants play this out because there are interesting quarterback prospects out there in the NFL. And I think this is where GMs and fans kind of get caught is they're like, well, I drafted a guy. I need to see this out for the next 3 years. The fuck you do. As soon as that shit looks sideways, you go find another quarterback that can like hold it together for yourself or like help you win some games here and there. Cause that's ultimately what this coaching staff is going to be tasked with doing. Like go win some games with what you have out there. And I think for Dable and stuff, like I think they got to win like 6 or 7 games to like show progress and keep their job. And I don't know, like you can only sell hope for so long before people are just like deaf to it and you need to make an adjustment. And you got to be a coaching staff that can like cook with the ingredients you have. And in the NFL, that's really hard to do when you're left with the quarterback room they are with Russ and with Jackson Dart. And like you don't have Saquon Barkley anymore. And you have, your offensive line is kind of patchwork. And, you have Malik Neighbors and you have some weapons out there, but largely like the cornerstone things that need to go right are still question marks. That's tough to do. That's really tough to do. And I don't know if the Giants can do it. This is going to be a rough season for the Giants. I think if you just almost hurricane proof your house and just sit there and just be like, all right, bring the season on. We'll see how it goes. Like, I think that's all you can do at this point.
Yeah. I mean, there is potential for this offense to have some excitement. It's just, even in the best case scenario where you're talking about these receivers getting some work and maybe, Russell Wilson looking a little bit better or Jackson Dart looking a little, looking pretty good. The schedule is just the final nail in the coffin because you can't have just a little bit of success and win some of these games. Like you have to play really well to win these games on a consistent basis. So like, even if you have something that you're like, oh, well, that was actually pretty exciting or that was pretty good, or you see that throw or that catch, like that's not going to win you games. And at the end of the season, the ownership is going to have to look at themselves and say, did we see enough to not fire literally everyone and completely turn everything on its side? And I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're going to see Brian Dable lose his job. You're going to see this front office gone, and you're going to see whichever quarterback, proves that they're more capable. They're going to have to completely reset next season anyway. And that's just, I feel bad for players put in these situations because it is so difficult to find any sort of success when you're in this spot.
I agree 100%. And I think we talk about the quarterback room. Do you think it is a signal of things going well or things going poorly if Jameis Winston starts some games?
That's also a tough question because as a fan of the NFL, like I would be
him starting is fun. Like he's a fun guy, but like if he is starting a game, a signal of things going well or things going poorly.
Yeah, no. If Jameis Winston sees the field, that means there are injuries or it's worse than anyone thought. I mean, that's really what it comes down
either way,
to.
it's not going well. I would agree with you. Some names of note really quick, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. Is that obviously drafted Abdul Carter. I think he's going to be a great. I think their defensive line looks really good. I think that's the one thing is they have a really good defense. It's just the offense that's largely a question mark. You have Malik Neighbors. One they brought in, which is probably one of the best names out there, is running back from Arizona State and Cam Scatabo, and that's he looks just like a dude. So I think that's probably option B if you're a Giants fan is Cam just going to be running wild all over everybody? Like that could be fun. I mean, that could be an interesting use case, but. Yeah, just the amount of questions this team has in the schedule, it's not going to be great. And so you just need to find some things that you can hang your hat on and move forward. All right, a couple rapid fire questions. Who's going to win the division? I think we agree.
Yep.
Eagles. Fly, easy. Eagles fly. That's going to be their division. I think if they this is going to be one of the divisions where it is like a monumental upset, I feel like, if they don't win the division. I think all the other divisions you kind of talk yourself in and out of scenarios. Commanders regression. I put this here as a question mark. And I think, what does the regression mean for you? I think we said if they make the playoffs, would it be them really missing the playoffs altogether, like being out of it 5 weeks after, like, what does the regression look like for them?
Now, I think in order to say that this team regressed, it's going to have to look really bad. Because I think this is a team that's in the spot of, if they give you even a glimmer of hope, you're going to hang on to it for probably years to come. So if they're in the conversation for the playoffs, if they're anything close to what they were last year, we're going to call it a success. And it's going to be one of those things where you're not writing this team off for as long as Jaden Daniels is there. I think that's the most likely outcome. In order for it to be really considered regression, I think it's going to have to look really, really bad. You're going to have Jaden Daniels going to have to throw a ton of interceptions or something, or there's going to have to be some major collapse for that. They're in a good spot where they're not going to have the media bearing down on them too much.
I agree. I don't think they're there yet. I think they're going to still get the benefit of the doubt because of numerous things. All right, last question before I get out. I know we said it'd be an overwhelming collapse if the Eagles don't win the division. Who would win the division if it's not the Eagles?
I think the most likely is going to be the Commanders. I think that they have the most exciting chances, but the Cowboys very well could be in that conversation too. I mean, we just talked about 3 of the 4 teams, so it's not like we're breaking news. But
no, we're not.
But yeah, the Cowboys, I could see be in that conversation.
I could see that being there, and like the NFC East is. I think we didn't pull this stat out, but like they haven't had a repeat winner in I don't know how long, and so does that trend? And I think if it does, I think it's the Cowboys pull their head out of their ass, and the Eagles stumble a little bit here and there. Which I think
when you look at the rosters, the Cowboys are the second best team in the division. I mean,
I agree.
There's no question about it. They just have so many questions in other areas and other facets of the game that make you not have faith in them. But
I agree.
They very well could put it together.
I agree. All right, Scotty, we're gonna put a little bow on this episode. We got preseason football this weekend. We're gonna have more football to talk about. We're gonna have highlights. We're gonna talk about some things. So football's right around the corner. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I know you're excited. I know the listeners is excited. We're finally going to get into actually discussing games and MVP races and who sucks and who should be fired and who's doing great. So right around the corner. And if you want to follow along with all of that, make sure you follow us on social media, all of our social media. We're on X, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, pumping out a lot of content all the time. We have amazing graphic artists. We're pumping out videos. We got clips. We got currently the team by team breakdown being done by our boys. We got MK. I just saw his last night? He just put one out. There's one I just watched. I feel like they're on all the time.
Yeah, they're awesome. If you're a fantasy football player, go watch those videos because he does such a good job. And I am an idiot when it comes to fantasy, and I feel like I might be a genius now.
Oh, they're really good. So make sure you're checking out all that content. I appreciate you listening. Stuck it out for episode 234. Matt, that's going to wrap it up. We are out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.